You're not poor because the world is unfair. You're poor because the world is strategic, and you were never taught to play the game. Most people live their lives believing wealth is a riddle, a mystical process, hidden behind closed doors and secret languages. But Machiavelli would smirk at that illusion. He understood that the real secrets of power are not locked away in dusty books. They are hidden in plain sight, disguised as common sense, diluted through comfort, and softened by the lies we teach our children. Getting rich isn't complicated. It's just brutally uncomfortable. It doesn't require genius. It requires perception. It doesn't demand perfection. It demands the willingness to see through deception and act while others dream. The reason most remain poor is not because the system is too strong. It's because they've been conditioned to love their own captivity. Machiavelli studied men who ruled cities, kingdoms, and minds. He noticed something simple. The powerful see reality as it is. The powerless see it as they wish it to be. The difference is not intelligence, it's courage. Most people refuse to confront the brutal truth because comfort feels safer than clarity. They want wealth without risk, fame without exposure, success without conflict. They want the fruit of power, but they fear the soil it grows in, conflict, uncertainty, and control. So they remain trapped in the same script written for them centuries ago. Obey, conform, consume, repeat. You were told to be good, to work hard, to wait your turn. But those are not virtues, they are strategies. And they weren't designed for your success. They were written for your compliance. The world trains you from childhood to become predictable, because predictability is the first layer of control. A predictable man can be manipulated without force. He'll wake up at the same hour, walk the same path, perform the same routine, and never realize the cage is of his own making. He'll call it stability. He'll call it safety. But Machiavelli would call it what it truly is: domestication. The system doesn't want you rich. It wants you reliable. It rewards obedience with survival, not freedom. It gives you weekends to recover, entertainment to distract, and slogans to soothe your quiet panic. Work hard and good things will happen. Dream big. Follow your passion. These are the lullabies of captivity. Because the truth is, plenty of people work hard. Most of them are broke. Dreams without power are hallucinations. Hope without strategy is the most effective tranquilizer ever created. And the system doses you daily. Machiavelli never romanticized fairness. He saw the world not as it should be, but as it is. He understood that goodness has no automatic reward, and justice does not move without power pushing it. He wrote of princes who rose not through purity, but through precision. Men who dared to see the rules for what they were, and then rewrote them. Wealth operates by the same logic. The poor obey rules designed to keep them poor. They trade time for money, pray for opportunity, and die believing they were just unlucky. The rich, they play a different game. They own, they control. They multiply. And they understand that time, the one resource everyone worships, is the worst currency of all because it runs out. When you trade your time for money, you've already lost the game. The powerful trade ownership for permanence. When you own, you create a system that moves even when you rest. You create leverage, the quiet machinery of wealth. That's why one man can work 12 hours a day and stay poor, while another can think strategically for 2 hours and grow richer in his sleep. It's not effort that separates them. It's understanding. Picture two men living in the same city. One clocks in every morning, saves a fraction of his income, and waits for the future to reward him. The other studies markets, learns to sell, invests his skill, and multiplies his effort through systems. 10 years later, the first man has fatigue, a pension, and a quiet resentment. The second has freedom, assets, and control. Same world, same hours, different outcomes. The difference wasn't in their hands. It was in their minds. Machiavelli warned rulers to study not what men say, but what they do. Because humans worship comfort even while complaining about it. The masses will follow any illusion that promises safety, even if it quietly kills them. They chase stable jobs while economies collapse, cling to savings while inflation eats their lifeblood, and call it prudence. But safety is the slowest form of suicide. A man who fears loss ensures he'll never gain. Fear is the silent contract that trades your future for your present calm. Machiavelli admired those who could face uncertainty with strategy, not emotion. He wrote that fortune favors the bold, not because risk is holy, but because risk is inevitable. The wise man does not avoid the storm, he prepares to rule it. The bold one sees fear for what it is, the door between dependency and dominion. Most people stop at that door and call it destiny. The few walk through and call it freedom. But even when the truth stands in front of them, most will stay broke. Why? Because they confuse movement with progress. They hustle in circles. They mistake exhaustion for achievement. They drown in noise, emails, meetings, scrolling, and mistake it for significance. Machiavelli would call that chaos disguised as effort. He would say, "You are not advancing. You are just moving to stay still." Getting rich is brutally simple, not because the process is easy, but because the principles are. Learn how money flows, position yourself in its path, build leverage, capture more than you give, guard it, and multiply it. That's the law. The rest is distraction. Imagine money as a river. Most people stand at the edge, waiting for the current to splash a few drops their way. The wealthy build canals. They shape the flow. They redirect the current into their own lands. It's the same river, the same world, but a different posture. One group prays, the other plans. One waits, the other takes. One suffers scarcity, the other manufactures abundance. Machiavelli would say, "The river does not choose. It obeys those who build its walls." He also spoke of two forces that drive all human action, fear and desire. The wealthy understand both intimately. They make others desire what they own and fear being without it. They create not through logic but emotion. They craft brands, symbols, movements. They don't sell products. They sell identity. They don't pitch ideas. They shape perception. Because the true currency is not money, it's influence over desire. The man who controls what others want will never go hungry. The woman who masters perception will never be invisible. Money follows magnetism, and magnetism can be built. But here's what Machiavelli would warn you about. Power invites opposition. The moment you rise, you attract envy. The mediocre will resent you, not because you've done wrong, but because you've done what they didn't dare. They will whisper that you changed, that you were lucky, that you sold out. What they will not admit is that you escaped. You rejected the comfort they worship, and in doing so, you exposed their cowardice. And cowardice hates its own reflection. That's the first real price of power, alienation. To walk the path of wealth is to walk away from the crowd. It's to trade approval for autonomy, belonging for freedom. It's to realize that every system, every school, every job was designed not to empower you, but to contain you. From childhood, you were taught to obey, not because you lacked intelligence, but because you had too much potential. You were trained to memorize, not to question, to comply, not to create, to perform, not to think. You were educated not into freedom, but into predictability. The system doesn't teach you how to build. It teaches you how to behave. That's why schools never teach the mechanics of money. They don't teach sales, negotiation, or leverage, because understanding those would make you independent. And independence is dangerous. The wealthy understood this long ago. They refused to learn from the same teachers who trained their servants. They didn't study obedience, they studied outcomes. They understood what Machiavelli observed centuries ago, that fortune rewards those who move when others wait, who act when others hesitate, who seize when others ask permission. Picture a man who spends his entire life trading time for money, waking up at the same hour, driving the same road, repeating the same routine. He dreams of freedom but never builds it, because everything he earns depends on his presence. He dies as he lived, useful, obedient, replaceable. Now picture another man. He begins the same, but he questions the script. He fails, learns, builds, and adapts. His income detaches from his hours. His systems grow even when he sleeps. After a decade, he owns his time. One man is tired, the other is powerful. The difference isn't luck, it's rebellion. Machiavelli would say that rebellion begins in the mind. It begins with the question few dare to ask. What if everything I was taught was a lie? Most never ask it because comfort is addictive. It numbs the will. It disguises stagnation as peace. But comfort is the most elegant poison in the world. It kills you without pain. People think they're happy, but they're merely sedated. They confuse contentment with control, peace with paralysis. They call their prison normal life. Machiavelli once wrote that men are quick to forget danger when times are good, but danger never forgets them. The world doesn't reward innocence, it rewards power. And power is not given, it's taken, built, engineered. If you want wealth, you must unlearn what you were taught. You must destroy the illusions that made you tame. Because the first step to freedom is not learning how to earn, it's learning how to see. Machiavelli understood that most men are not driven by truth, they are driven by appearances. They chase symbols of power, not power itself. They worship wealth but never study leverage. They speak of freedom but spend their lives seeking permission. And that is why they are conquered before they even fight. He wrote that fortune favors the bold, but not the reckless. Fortune bends to those who act with calculation disguised as courage. The mistake most make is thinking movement equals progress. They confuse activity with control. But control doesn't come from doing more. It comes from understanding the invisible threads that pull the world. Every ruler, every strategist, every wealthy man plays with those threads. Systems, networks, and timing. The masses play with emotion, outrage, and luck. The rich use the crowd's reactions as a shield. The poor use their emotions as a weapon against themselves. Machiavelli would remind you, the game isn't about who works harder, but who makes others work for their plan. This is why leverage beats labor every single time. You can sweat for a lifetime and die with nothing, or you can build one structure that multiplies your presence while you sleep. The Prince of Florence saw this centuries ago. He watched merchants grow richer than kings, not through strength, but through systems. Today that system is digital. Algorithms, attention, capital flows, the new armies. And the ones who understand them are the modern rulers. But here's what no one admits. Power requires distance. The closer you are to chaos, the less control you have. The wealthy separate themselves from the noise. They build walls of privacy, of delegation, of abstraction. They don't chase, they attract. They don't compete, they position. That is how they remain untouchable while the rest fight for visibility. And this is where Machiavelli would sharpen his blade of thought. He'd whisper, if you want power, you must first learn invisibility, because true power doesn't announce itself. It acts in silence, behind curtains, through proxies. The most powerful don't speak of power. They let others speak for them. That's why the richest man in the room is usually the quietest. He already owns the stage. He doesn't need to perform on it. In today's age, people mistake visibility for influence. They think having followers equals having leverage. But what they don't realize is that attention is rented, not owned. The moment you depend on applause, you've already lost your crown. Machiavelli would remind you, the throne doesn't need validation. It only needs stability. The smart ones build foundations while others build personas. They invest in assets that don't decay with time, ownership, systems, intellectual property. Because they know the empire of attention collapses the moment the crowd turns away. And the crowd always turns away.
But power has one eternal rule. Those who understand human nature always win.
The ruler who studies psychology controls those who study trends. Because human nature never updates. The same fear, greed, envy, and desire that ruled Florence still rule Wall Street, Hollywood, and every social feed today. The forms evolve, but the impulses remain identical. The world may digitize, but the mind stays medieval. This is the advantage of the Machiavellian thinker. While others chase motivation, he studies manipulation. While they chase happiness, he studies hierarchy. Because he knows that every society, no matter how modern, runs on one ancient structure, dominance. The strong lead, the clever manipulate, the naive obey. And yet here lies the paradox. The true Machiavellian doesn't crave control for vanity. He seeks it to stay free. Because in a world built on manipulation, refusing to learn manipulation doesn't make you moral. It makes you prey. The man who knows how the game works can choose when not to play. But the man who ignores it is played forever. Machiavelli never glorified deceit, he revealed it. He wrote not for tyrants, but for those who understood that pretending evil doesn't exist only guarantees its victory. Power is not moral or immoral. It's a force, neutral, amoral, shaping everything around it. To deny it is to deny gravity. So the question isn't whether you want power, It's whether you'll admit that you already live under it. Every system, every ideology, every hierarchy you move through is designed by someone who understood these rules better than you. And the moment you realize that, something awakens. A cold clarity. You stop blaming. You start observing. You stop chasing noise and begin studying silence. You start asking the questions that powerful people ask. Who benefits from this belief? Who designed this game? And how can I rewrite the rules in my favor? That's where the transformation begins. Not with wealth itself, but with perception. Because the mind that sees reality without illusion is already rich. Once you learn to think like a ruler, you no longer serve one. That is the essence of Machiavelli's philosophy. Freedom through understanding, dominance through detachment. He would remind you that control isn't taken, it's built. Every day you delay mastery, someone else profits from your ignorance. The world will always have rulers and subjects, but the choice of which one you become begins in the mind. And when you finally see it, truly see it, everything changes. You stop playing for applause and start playing for advantage. You stop fearing judgment and start wielding consequence. You stop chasing opportunity and start designing it. Because the dark truth is this: the rich are not lucky. They are lucid. They saw what others refused to. They acted while others hesitated. They played the game as it is, not as they wished it to be. And that lucidity, that ruthless acceptance of truth, is what Machiavelli called virtue, not goodness, but mastery. So when you look at the world and see inequality, don't see oppression, see design. Don't see cruelty, see architecture. Because the system isn't your enemy, it's your test. And those who learn its language stop being victims of it. Machiavelli would close his book, look at you and say, "Power doesn't corrupt. It reveals. It strips away illusion and shows you who you truly are, whether you command or obey, whether you build or serve, whether you see or stay blind." The world rewards the clear-eyed, not the kind-hearted. Because clarity is the rarest form of strength, and in a civilization built on deception, to see clearly is the most dangerous power of all. And now, as you return to your life, remember this: every conversation, every transaction, every relationship is a negotiation of power. You're either influencing or being influenced. There is no neutrality. The only question is, will you play consciously or be played unconsciously? Because Machiavelli already wrote the rules. The rest is up to you.